everyone. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. I'm Jim Cardle. Well, the coronavirus is issue number one on everybody's minds, and it's even impacting some of our rural, smaller communities in Texas. State Representative Dan Flynn's from House District 2, east of Dallas, in the DFW area. He's been a frequent guest and is chairman of the House Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee. He's former banking commissioner, serves on the Pensions and Financial Services Committee, and has an update and input exactly what's going on across the state of Texas. We're pleased to visit with State Rep Dan Flynn today on the coronavirus and its impacts on Texas. Well, State Representative Dan Flynn from House District 2, appreciate you coming in today. A lot to talk about in this period.
You know, it's always a joy to come in and visit with you, Jim. I appreciate your time that you'll spend with us, and we are right on target with many issues that are out there.
Many issues. We've got the China brand essentially going down the toilet, I'll say. We've got the stock market going back and forth. We've got the STAR test, thanks to you, postponed. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to, you're respected and in a number of significant leadership roles in the House of Representatives and have been for years. Governor Abbott's been doing some things. Give us your thumbnail on this whole coronavirus thing and what the impacts on the state and the situation in the state is, if you can.
It's so big, it was hard for many of us to kind of get our arms around what's going on. And I can't thank our president enough for recognizing it on the initial front end of it and doing the things he's done. I hate to think what would happen to us had he not done it. The other thing that I like about it is the president recognizes that states are his best ally. And our Governor Abbott has just jumped up there and he's taken over. He's really done the things that needed to be done, and he's done them really quick. And I think we're not going to have the major problems that some of the other states may have just because of his quick action. We got the National Guard. He's advocating to be involved in some of the things that we need to do. He's helped us with the school issues. He's helped us with the restaurants and the just trying to educate all of us to know that we need to be sure that we use common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole lot of what I think that's happened is folks just haven't realized how really dangerous this is. It is. It's kind of scary to me because I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I don't trust the Chinese. The Chinese, when the president calls it a Chinese virus, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they're always looking for another avenue to build their empire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're doing the right thing. We have no business having our drugs manufactured in China, and just start looking at all of the things that they have been taking control of that we didn't even realize until they have a crisis. And now I see what he's doing, and I'm on his team.
It has been interesting to see some of the more recent focus move to the word China or who's getting credit for the virus. But I want to ask you, because your district is a little bit east of the Dallas area, the Fort Worth, Dallas Metroplex. Tell us, are you seeing any effects up there, or is the containment, I guess containment would be a second question, but what are you seeing in the DFW Metroplex in terms of exposure?
Of course, we are very different from the Metroplex. We are a rural community, and I just got a notification from our county judge and from our local newspaper that we had our first recorded case of the coronavirus.
Really?
And here in Van Zandt County, that's it was inevitable. It's going to happen because people travel. Most of it's a senior area, and so they're involved in a lot of activities that require them together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a wake-up call to all of us of how serious this is. We just need to take care of business because this too will pass. We've faced a lot of serious issues in our time, and I think the flu is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to be real careful what we do, and I think the president and the governor are doing those things that will enable us to come out. Summertime's coming. Nothing helps viruses like good sunshine.
Mm-hmm. How about the idea we're really to the point where the American consumer, the American citizen is realizing how serious containment is, in particular the self-containment.
Oh, yeah.
Are you seeing some of that in your district? Are people taking it seriously? What's the penetration in the voters in terms of seriousness?
It started with the schools when they started canceling UIL and they started canceling the MBA season. All of a sudden, people are saying, you know what, this is pretty serious stuff, and we need to pay more attention to what's going on. And it's been a wake up call for all of us. It is something, but here again, my hats off to our leadership. They've really stepped up, and the things that the president's done, but our governor has just stepped right in and he's taken control of it. We've got our National Guard that's going to be on hand to do whatever we may need them to do. Even the DPS and the Text Dot are going to extend the time on driver's license and any kind of issues that we need to deal with. And I think he's just going to kind of look across the board and recognize how serious this is, and we need to be sure that we address all those needs.
How about, again, folks, I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. We're visiting with Chairman Dan Flynn from House District 2, Chairman of the Veterans and Defense Affairs Committee in the House, former banking commissioner, NRA A+ rated, realtors support you. How about pivoting, if I can, because you got involved here recently with sending a letter to the governor that you mentioned has been very proactive, but one of the first things he did was in regards to the STAR test. Tell us about that effort.
You know what, we were talking to some of our friends there in education, and they were concerned that what are we going to do if we're letting kids out of school and then we're going to bring them back in and have to do this STAR test. And the STAR test has a lot of long-range possibilities. Now, no university has ever asked about a STAR test. Businesses don't ask about it. It's a test that creates a tremendous amount of stress among not only teachers, but the students and parents. And so you have to rethink, why are we doing this? And we're paying an awful lot of money to a United Kingdom
based company
that I think we need to address that and look at it a little harder, because it hasn't kind of been what it was advertised to be. And we have plenty of tests. The classroom teacher knows best about that student, where the student is when they come in and where the student is when they leave. And I think that's House Bill 2 was great from the standpoint of it gave us an opportunity to put more funding and more responsibility to the local groups.
That was the school finance reform bill last session.
And that, I think I believe was the best school bill that I've seen since I've been in the legislature. Mm-hmm. And it was only step one for property tax reform. And when we come back, the governor has even said it's going to be a priority for him to be sure that we move forward with the next steps on this property tax reform. Because that's the biggest key issue that affects all of us. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if you're a renter, it increases because when taxes go up, if you're renting, you're going to have an increase in your rent. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that nobody should ever have to buy a home, pay for it, and then rent it from the government the rest of your life, pay taxes.
Yeah. You are chairman of the Defense and Veteran Affairs Committee. Another issue I want to ask you about, because of the demographic and the age bracket of a lot of veterans in this state, that has been mentioned repeatedly and consistently as one of the more vulnerable populations. Do you see any engagement or penetration in the Veterans Affairs in the veterans?
Yeah, our governor
community
has always been very supportive of veterans, and I appreciate that. And you're exactly right.
Because we can't overlook them as well.
No, we've got a commitment. We have a lifetime commitment to them. Mm-hmm. And these senior veterans their health is very weak, and that's where this coronavirus kind of targets is the older folks and seniors. Now, I don't know if we're in that category.
We are.
But anyway,
got on that.
The other thing is these young men and women that are coming back from their health is very poorly. It's very poor. And so that would make them vulnerable too. I just want to be sure. The fact is, I wrote the text to the governor's office this morning saying I don't want us to forget how vulnerable they are and how important it is for us to be sure that we stand with them.
You're a former commissioner of banking for Texas. A lot of folks won't know that we have a banking commissioner. You either get a national charter or a state charter for a bank. What do you anticipate, or is it too early to try and speculate what the economic impacts are?
With the absolutely the shutting down of businesses right here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
When I was deputy banking commissioner, it was one of the things that was always amazing to me is little things always affect the financial community, because if people need $100, they need it just as bad as somebody needs $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so the financial institutions, regardless of whether it's banks or finance companies or credit unions, they all need to address that. I would say, yes, there's going to be some economic challenges that small businesses are going to have to be looked at. And here again, on the national level, the president's working with the Senate and U.S. Congress to be sure that we address that. I don't know exactly what they're going to come up with. It scared me to death when I heard on radio this morning that it could be $1 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a lifetime banker, a trillion. I never had $1 trillion bank.
Yes, it used to be $1 million here and $1 million there.
Yeah.
It adds up to real money. Now we're talking billions and trillions.
I was working with the Chicago Board of Exchange a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked him what the volume was, and he said, "We don't know." And I thought, "You got to have some idea." And he said, "Well, maybe it's a 4 quadrillion." And I never even heard quadrillion before. So I mean, it's one of those things where the numbers are big, and we're in a serious situation, and it's going to affect all of us at any point. It'll even affect your churches, because you get churches that have 4 or 5 hundred people that come
Mm-hmm.
to the church on Sunday morning, and they want us to hold up to 10 people, and they keep a distance from folks. Don't shake hands, don't hug.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things that are important. We need to look at.
How about, if I could get into the economic, or away from the economic aspect, but you are one who is good at communicating. I know from our friendship over the years, the Texas legislators, are you all communicating? Has there been discussions amongst you all about how this might impact the next legislative session, or is everybody just at the initial hunkering down phase?
No, I think there's a lot of conversation about just what it's going to do to our budget,
Mm-hmm.
because we're you don't start working on the budget when the legislature convenes.
Right.
They're already working on it, and Jill is the new chairman of appropriations during this time.
Oh yeah, Gio Capriglione, the new
Right.
Appropriations Committee chairman in the House.
I have lots of confidence in Gio. He's been involved in finances most of his life, maybe all of his life, and
With a tech background.
yes. In fact, is we brought him into the State Guard via our tech officer, and we're excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going to do a great job. It's a good choice for the speaker.
But the oil and gas revenues, the oil and gas prices have been going down based on not the coronavirus, but a Russia-Saudi tit for tat.
Yeah.
That impacts the state budget.
You bet. It'll be kind of fun for us to go to the service station and have real cheap gasoline, but that does have ramifications. I was visiting with the chairman of the Railroad Commission, Wayne Christian,
Okay.
and Wayne was telling me that the find in West Texas is the biggest oil find ever.
Really?
Yeah, it's in fact, as he was at one of the conferences, he was discussing it, which we always think about certain fields, but this is worldwide one of the biggest finds we've ever had. And of course, just as that comes out is when they start the games over in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
which is, we all need to be aware that we're targets. The United States of America is a target because the world, they hate us, but they want to be just like us.
Mm-hmm. Well put. Again, folks, we're visiting with State Representative Dan Flynn from House District 2, east of Dallas. One final question, Chairman, and that has to do with the possibility, maybe looking down the road, the State Guard. You have been a longtime member and officer. There are going to be some potential needs, I would guess, for involvement with that type of group, or maybe not. Tell us, have you had any discussions with the State Guard?
I believe the State Guard, and the new commander of the State Guard is Robert Duke of Bodish, who used to be the assistant director of the Department of Public Safety, and he is a soldier. He is an incredible guy. And the State Guard, if you think about all the hurricanes we've had, they were the first there to help. That's why we didn't have the problems other states had.
Okay.
If you think about the natural disasters, they were always there. They helped us on the border with Border Star. They helped us in East Texas, helping get health care to these young people that they have no way of addressing those issues. And many of them, whether it's prenatal care or whether it's dental, hygiene, just eye doctors, that's what we've been able to do. And so we want to be sure that we continue to promote the State Guard. Governor's always been, Governor Perry was really big on it, and he helped build it up, and I think Governor Abbott's going to continue it too.
How about as a tangent, I know you've been down to the border on the gunships. You do monthly training. There's been reports about Chinese illegal immigrants trying to come across the border. Any insights there?
Those are things that we've addressed for the last couple of years. Yes, Chinese, Middle East, South America, Central America, they're all there. And the DPS and Nim Kidd, who is head of Homeland Security for the state of Texas, has done an outstanding job. Kind of scares us a little bit when we have some of our well-intended patriots and almost like a vigilante, they go down there. It creates additional problems for us because not only are we worried about the bad guys, but we've got to be sure that our own friends are not there, and we need to work with them. And we need to have the people that are in charge be there so that they can conduct the great surveillance that needs to be done. And we are doing. Big supporter of the wall. I think it'll be something that will really help in this border security. And you're right. There's no greater. Reagan said, if you don't have boundaries, you don't have a country. And we need to maintain our boundaries.
Well, speaking of maintaining things, I'm going to let you get on with your day and want to thank you all, folks, for joining us for this edition of Texas Insider with Chairman Dan Flynn from House District 2. Mr. Chairman, appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you, Jim. It's always an honor and pleasure. And to be an insider, it's important.
Yes. Stay safe, folks, in this time of self-containment and the coronavirus. Be sure and join us for future editions of Texas Insider, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. I'm Jim Cardle. Thanks for joining us.